What is up, YouTube? It is John, or the Messiah TCG, whatever you prefer to call me. Again, gotta work on that name. But hey, I'm bringing you a different kind of video today. It's actually about a deck that I love to play right now in this current meta. It's Rapidmon. And so my goal here with this video is to kind of give a high-level guide of a lot of what Rapidmon does, what the cards do, what I'm currently playing and why I'm playing it, as well as maybe some matchup data and some considerations, and furthermore some additional input and ideas to hopefully get anyone who's interested in playing this deck to a point where, you know, they could play it at least at a decent level. Kind of like me, I guess. But without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and kick this off. Appreciate you checking out the channel, checking out this video. If you like it, please let me know. I would love to do more of this. I've noticed there's not a lot of competitive content for the Digimon community. I mean, there is, but not to the same level of like the Pokemon community, for example. So that's something I would love to do. I'm not sure this video will get a lot of views, but anyway, I'll just might as well come into it. First and foremost, this is a deck list for Tribal Rapidmon. I understand that people may love the Alliance variation with Cherubi, etc. That is not the version I'm playing, so I definitely want to just reiterate that that's what this deck list is. It's Tribal Rapidmon. And so while we get started, let's jump into a couple things here. What makes Rapid strong, right? Like, why do we want to play this deck aside from loving Terriermon? Well, first and foremost, we love board control. We can get rid of wide boards. We can completely dismantle stacks. We can apply constant pressure. Terrier and Rapids coming out of raising, just like, you know, giving our opponent a flurry of things to deal with, especially if we have our Tamers, which are usually pretty easy to set up thanks to the starter deck Terriermon. Additionally, it's more, I would say that this deck is more of a mid-range deck. We apply pressure early game, and then we try to close games out with like Gargo Ace and Rapid X. I think most of the time you lean into trying to close games with Gargo Ace, just because you can kind of have someone from lethal at 2 security if you get a lot mon out, right? And then you could Alliance, unsuspend, and then swing for game, hopefully. But swinging with Gargo Ace is sketchy. And then ultimately the Tamer value. The amount of value you get from the amount of value you get from playing the Tamers off of starter deck Terriermon is absolutely insane. And you can really outvalue a lot of the decks in the meta right now, barring you see the right stuff. Alright, so what is it weak to? This is actually kind of funny, because a couple of the meta decks actually kind of do have an easy time into it. So first and foremost, anything blue, spin, bounce, that stuff hurts. Your only hope against that is the starter deck level 5 Rapidmon. De-Digivolve is super mean, so we'll get a lot of like black on Terriermon crime, and that's something that happens a lot that we deal with. De-Digivolve hurts so bad and completely destroys stacks, especially when you only have like an armor over a level 3. Anything that's unaffected, i.e. Tyrant and Magna, those decks are usually a little bit of a harder matchup. You can play around it, but if you're playing against certain variations of the deck, it's not impossible, but super difficult. Anything sticky, so an example I can give you is like if you clear Pyodramon and they spit out 2 bodies and you're unable to spit out those 2 bodies, unable to clear those 2 bodies, that could get super sketchy. One way to mitigate that is to try and swing and be a little bit brave, and then, you know, use your Rapid X to clear board afterwards. But obviously in the meta that we're in right now, there's a lot of aces, so you do kind of have to play a little bit cautiously. Whiffing Tamers sucks horribly. And my last YouTube video, I played round 2 against Machinedramon, my second game against Machinedramon, excuse me. Dude, I whiffed Tamers and that was so miserable. Like, not having Willis, not having Mimi, that stuff sucks. And on top of that, whiffing Tamer sucks. Tamer hate sucks. So like, thankfully Black War Grey is not a big thing right now, but like Hades Force would be super annoying. Granted, I think you could probably deal with Black War Grey, just suspend it, run it over. So Tamer hate is super annoying, especially when you have stuff like Levia. Levias can be a little bit of a problematic matchup. But finally, big bodies and security. Your Mega Gargo Ace dying in security, oof, that's one hell of a way to lose a game. 12k, 13, maybe 14k is usually enough, but I mean, you'll die to things like Blitz Omni, Levia, Grace Nova. Like, you'll die to so many random things in security. Of course, option cards also get you, but usually if you're playing a deck that option cards kill you, you can reasonably expect that you don't really have to worry about DP. But in this instance, sometimes you do, and there are instances where you die in security, and that shit sucks. Alright, so now that we discussed what quickly what the deck is good for and what it's bad and what hurts it, I'm gonna go over my current 50. This is what I'm playing. I've tested the deck a little bit, or an extensive amount, I should say, because I love it to pieces, and I'm just gonna go ahead and show you what I'm playing. So this is from Digimon.card.app. No need to like screenshot this or like really go through it if it's something you want to try, but I'm gonna actually go right now into a card by card and go through why I picked certain cards and give you some rationale. So we're gonna go ahead and start with the eggs. So we play 5 total eggs here, and the first egg I want to highlight is Terriermon. So the big thing here is I know that we love the DP boost. It's something that's super helpful, especially in this meta. And like I was just talking about, dying to security sucks. And the DP does come up pretty often. But if I'm being honest with you, the draw power from Gummymon is so important for cycle, so that you can make sure that you're setting up another rookie and raising and able to turbo out and deal with the board that your opponent builds. One thing I didn't mention that I probably should have is one of the reasons I love this color so much, or love this deck so much, is because it's very reactionary. You make plays based off what your opponent does, as opposed to only doing one thing every game. So right, depending on what you're playing against and depending on the board state, you can do so many different things, and that's what makes me love the deck so much, because it's very reactive. Also, as a side note, just for the structure here, you'll see the card on the left with in the bottom left corner of the card, there'll be a count number. So if at any point you want to know how many of these I'm playing currently, you can see that there. So that's Terriermon. Next, we'll move to Gummymon. Very simply put, the DP boost from Niaro is super helpful. But dude, honestly, the cycle from Gummymon is just absolutely needed. I'm sure if you guys play any deck that struggles with draw power, you know, especially if you're playing something like red, the draw power, you need it, man. You need to find your pieces, you need to find the stuff, you need to keep the ball rolling, keep the tempo high. Granted, sometimes you do miss the DP, and against something like Mirage, you kind of have to out it before you swing, but you just got to see your cards. So that's my rationale for those. I'm playing a 2-3 split, 2 Terriermon, 3 Gummymon. Realistically, I want to see Gummymon earlier in the game and Niaro maybe later, like my second or third egg, hopefully. But I find very often that I actually go through all my eggs in majority of my matchups. All right, so we're going to talk about rookies. We're playing 15. Playing 3 of the Terrier X. This card is absolutely awesome. The fact that he gives piercing, you get a free draw of X antibody is crazy. It's just another additional super valuable rookie. If you can go Terrier, Star Deck Terrier, this card is crazy. If you can use it to memory choke your opponent, there's so many different things that you can do. The problem I have with it is that with BT8 Gold Rapidmon, it costs 4 to Evo, 3 hypothetically, because you do reduce the cost by 1. But the other starter deck Gold Rapidmon, the starter deck Gold Rapidmon costs 2. So like that, the value is there. But when you go into the older Gold Rapid, it just feels so bad because you're still paying 3 for it, right? Like, and you wish you could pay like 2. I think that would be crazy. So that's the only drawback I have with this card, because I love it. Obviously, you could turbo up into your level 6 with this, but I just find sometimes it's super annoying to deal with the 3 cost Evo into the Gold Rapid as opposed to the 2 from the newer Rapid. Another thing is you can't Evo over Lopmon. And in this variation of the deck, I'm focusing on playing Lopmon as my damage dealer, or at least my quote-unquote damage with Alliance. So the fact that Terrier X can't Evo over Lopmon makes it a little bit worse, but I digress. I think this card is awesome. 3 to 4. I'm currently playing 3. Definitely love this card. Next, we're going to go into EX2 Terriermon. So I know this is one that maybe is not included in a lot of lists, but I love this card because the combo with this with double Typhoon is actually insane. And the amount of value you can get, you could play a Willis for free, right? And then you set up another rookie and raising, and then you maybe evolve for 2 or evolve for 3, choke your opponent to 1 or 2. It's so interesting, and it allows you to really, if you see it, of course, it allows you to really turn the Willis plays into a value, like super value. Also, the 2K DP does come up in a handful of matchups. Most things that when you rest them with like Rapid X after they've been arrested with a Gold Rapid, BT8 Gold Rapid, they just blow up, especially if you did Devolve it or something. But the additional 2K does help, especially in instances where like you're gonna use Mega Gargo and ignore their board and just try and do damage to security, or obviously try to swing over something. but it's a little bit more situational than I may have liked. I may like, because it's only when this card sees an opponent's Digimon get suspended. So obviously that's a little bit harder of a condition to match. Next, we're gonna go into the EX4 on the Searcher. I dislike this card strongly. I know the search is good. You can find your Mons, but you bottom deck all Tamers, and at least the variation of this deck that I'm playing, because you only find Henry. If this found any green Tamer, this card would be insane. You played F4, but I don't like it because I feel like you bottom deck a lot of your Tamers, and truth be told, like if you don't play your Tamers, you probably lose. So that's just my gripe with the card. The Alliance does come up sometimes. It's really cool if you can get it off, but it's not really something that you go for, because ideally you don't want this Terrier in the stack. Realistically, you want like the DP buff, because just the way the meta is right now. This is definitely better in the Alliance version, of course. So I'm playing it at 2. Also, I hate this card. Next, we're gonna go Star Deck Terriermon. I don't really need to beat a dead horse here. This card's crazy. Best rookie in the deck. Facilitates your Tamer setup. It lets you do the Willis combo, and really, and the big word for this deck is value. You get so much value out of using this card in combination with the EX2 Terrier, or even just like playing this off a double Typhoon, play a Willis, then Hatch, etc. And you can even play Mimi for 2, right? Maybe memory choke your opponent if you know they've had a slow start. All in all, incredible card, and the DP boost inherit helps a lot. Lopmon Alliance. Lopmon, I'm playing a 3 of. This is the damage. This is what you want to primarily play off of double Typhoon to Alliance, do some damage, apply pressure. And in some instances, you can OTK with Mega Gargo, right? I mean, it's a little bit harder to do for this type of deck, but it's something that you can do. One thing to note is that Evo and Raising does feel terrible. Like if this is the only rookie you open, it's really bad, especially if you open like this and like all Rapids, right? Because then you're paying 4 to go over it, which sucks. So that's just one thing to consider, is that does kind of suck. And granted, I chose this instead of Fire Rocket because I felt it was a little bit more consistent when it comes to damage, but I could definitely see the argument for Fire Rocket in the future, just because it does kind of suck, going Lopmon into Rapid, but I actually play some cards to hopefully mitigate that. All right, so now we're going to go into our champions. We played 10 total. So very simply, 4 of the BT8 Gold Rapid. This card is crazy. If you have the right Tamers, you could like clear up to 3 things, right? 5k DP minus is insane. It also gives you a pretty interesting threshold. This thing can actually run over level 6s depending on the setup of the board, right? Since you can be typically around 7 or 8k DP, you minus 5k to something. You could even trade with Armor Purge to clear level 6 and go back down to your Terriermon. So it's a pretty strong card. I love this card so much, but the fact that it costs 4 over Lop and 4 over Terrier X, quote unquote 3, is super unfortunate. But the setup that you get with this card's crazy. Like you go this Rapid X, it's like, dude, your opponent, depending on what they're playing, may not ever come back from that. And then obviously, level 4, you get the Ace threat. It's something you could ace over, and it's super scary. Your opponent always has to deal with that. That's one of the main benefits with this deck, is that everything that you play, hypothetically, every single one of your monsters threatens ace. All right, and then we're playing 4 of the starter deck Gold Rapid. So blocker plus DP minus is absolutely bonkers. I can't believe they let you do that. It's pretty funny. And then the other thing is DP minusing security Digimon is also very, very strong. And you can swing a little bit more safely. So this is effectively like an 11k, 12k if you factor in like a 1k DP buff from the rookies. So that's pretty cool. And most of the time this will survive security. Obviously security options still screw you over. The targeted DP minus is also pretty good, because you can use it to pick apart your opponent's board. Obviously at that point though, your monster is suspended, so going into Rapid X and trying to swing over something isn't as prevalent. 2 cost over Terrier X, which is crazy. And then last thing is Purge plus Ace. Like you can ace over this, and it has Armor Purge, so absolutely fantastic card. Love it. I kind of wish, I want everything, right? But my only request or wish would be that when you Digivolve into it, suspend something, as opposed to when attacking, or like when you suspend it. Okay, and And then final champion here, we play 2 Gargomon. All right, and I know what you're saying. Hey, it's not a Rapidmon, you can't ace over it. That is super unfortunate. But this card saves your ass so many times because it costs 2 over Lopmon. In an instance where you're kind of in a bad situation and you need to evo over your Lopmon, and let's say you need to keep turn, right? Or you just don't want to pay 4 if you don't have, like, or maybe 3, right? If you have Willis, hypothetically. This just allows you to climb into a 4 for free, or for very cheap, especially if you have training or something. And just makes it to where your Lopmon stacks don't feel super bad. Obviously, you have to see it, and then the other positive is you get jamming 1k plus 1k DP. So it just, I put this card in for consistency since I am playing Lopmon. Like, we don't want a Lopmon in raising and then have to pay 4, right? Like that sucks, and of course that's gonna be something that you are going to have to do. But let's at least give ourselves an opportunity to, like, you know, play the game without paying too much memory. And then finally, it is not an ace threat, so that is super unfortunate. There's actually been multiple instances where I could have won games because I could have went rapid mega gargo ace swing and won the game, but of course that's only happened, actually that hasn't happened a lot. There's one instance that's happened, and I'm obviously dramatizing it, but either way, I love this card because it's consistency through evo cost efficiency, and it just really helps round out your champions. Obviously, sometimes 8 isn't enough, but either way, it's a card I'm playing right now. I definitely think there is a lot of use to it. I would recommend trying it out, just for consistency's sake. All right, then we're going to Ultimates, probably the shortest category that we have. We only play 4. So this is Rapidmon, level 5. This card I think is probably my favorite in the deck, just because of how versatile it is. You get the D-Digi in combination with some of the DP minus, and you can absolutely clear boards, man, or clear stacks. This is a stack clear, in my opinion. You can also hard slam it and de-digivolve something. Also, you can hard slam it, gains immunity, which is crazy. The protection is actually super relevant, not against just blue, but against this meta in general. And just giving your body an opportunity to stay alive is so crucial, because it feels like right now we're in a state of Digimon where nothing survives on the board. Everything gets outed. Unless, of course, you're playing something like Mirage where you don't care what they do. The Inherited is also insane. I wish that there was easier to proc, but I actually found that when you go into BT8 Gold Rapid and then you go into this Rapid and then Rapid X, 9 times out of 10 you're negging something 9k, and then you're de-digivolving something and it's getting negged to 9k, so there isn't going to be anything to swing over, and if there is, then holy cow. But most of the time, if you can get into this card and then swing over something with the Terrier X, for example, let's say you go Rapid X over this and you have Terrier X in sources, you not only pierce, but you'll gain the memory from Rapid X, you'll trash the security, and you'll pierce and check for 1. So that's like the game plan, or that's the play that, like, you live for. Like, if you get that off, man, feels so good. You feel like you're on top of the world. Of course, because sometimes checking security can be sketchy. But either way, definitely one of my favorite cards in the deck. I wish we had another good Rapid. All right, Megas. We play, oh, this isn't correct, my bad. We play 7 total. So we play 4 Rapid X. This card is insane. I don't think I have to really go into it too much, but the board clear is crazy. The mem gain is also crazy. Synergy with Star Deck Rapid is OP, minus 9k. Star Deck Rapid level 5 is OP with the de-digivolve and then swing trash security I just mentioned. Also nuke 9k is crazy. And Purge, dude, the fact this card has Purge, we are big chilling. Like, we don't care, you know, like, unless obviously you're playing into blue or bounce or spin. If you're playing a deletion deck, you're like, all right, do something. Even more so if you went into Rapid the turn before, you can't even delete it. So that's even funnier, but Purge means this guy is absolutely chilling, man. And once this card's on the board, it's a mission for your opponent to remove it. But of course, we live in a meta where Magna X exists and Numemon can just, like, you know, swing over it, de-digivolve, etc. There's a lot going on, but definitely think that this card is not overtuned. I would actually say it's fair in comparison to Magna X, but I love it. And then the fact that you could turbo into it over 80% of the level 4s is bonkers. 2 of these. So I had an instance where I was playing against one of my buddies, Cameron, and he had 2 of these, and I, like, went to tap something with HPD and it nuked it by 8k. So I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that happens. So yeah, that's what I call that place, the nuke. So when you have 2 of these on board, and then your opponent just, woof, not in a good place. But yeah, love this card. And then of course the last level 6 we play is the Ace. We play 3 of them currently. So the Ace threat is always alive in this deck, even over Rapid X. So your opponent needs to play cautious. That kind of benefits you though, just because you don't really have a lot of damage unless you see the Lobmon. So the fact that there is the quote-unquote Ace threat allows you to play a slower game, which obviously then benefits you greatly because you're able to build up your resources. Shutting down Evos and Tamers can grind the game to an absolute 0-0-0 sum halt. Like there's nothing your opponent can do. They just kind of got to sit there and wait. Or obviously you control the board, suspend something, run it over. If they do play into your alliance, that's actually crazy because then and then obviously you punish their board. I mean, play into your alliance. They play into your Ace. You block and then they die. And sometimes honestly with some of the decks they're in the meta, like something like Red Hybrid for example, they got to play into Ace. They just got to deal with it, right? Swinging security can be risky, and this is something that I've dealt with multiple times, is that sometimes, again, 13 or 14k ADP is sometimes too small. So you're afraid of options, and you're afraid of big bodies. But I mean, if you have rapid, if you go rapid starter deck, level 5 from the starter deck, and then into this, if you're able to do it in the same turn and didn't do damage, obviously you're a little bit safer, you're chilling, like you're not really afraid of option cards, you're only scared of big bodies. And then finally, I missed this point, but this with Alliance is crazy. You can do a lot of damage and really, really scare your opponent. But again, to be honest, swinging with the Swing Security for anything that's not maybe 1 or 2 checks is super scary. You usually want to go like Alliance, swing 2 checks, unsuspend, swing for you. Alright, now we're going to move to Tamers. We play 5 total. So we play Mimi, obviously memory setter, and the fact that you can tap to hatch an egg if you have a level 5 really lets you keep tempo and deal with your opponent's board, because you have to assume, right, whenever you push up a stack, your opponent's going to push up and also answer it. So the fact that you can, on your turn, tap the Mimi and preemptively set up another thing to come out of raising to deal with whatever your opponent does next allows you to really play this game of tempo and stay ahead. Because I think Rapidmon does struggle a little bit when it's a little bit far behind, or a little bit behind. If you get both Mimis out, you're a crazy person. Like it's happened to me where I played one and one came out security, and then you just go you turbo. By turn 3, I think I was out of eggs, which is not ideal, but I guess it depends on the matchup. You can play Henry, but I feel that Mimi in combination with Willis just gives you a lot more value. And then we play 3 Willis. Definitely the best tamer in the deck. Obviously, there's only 2 tamers, so easy choice there. The fact that it's a 1-drop off of Terriermon, or 1-drop with Terriermon, or for free with Terriermon and EX6 Terriermon is insane. You hatch the egg is huge, especially when it's cheated out. Like that really helps you. Again, tempo. Keep the pressure coming from raising. Make your opponent have to react or have to do something. Evo cost reduction is the lifeblood of this card, man. I do sometimes wish it did a little bit more, but that 1 cost Evo reduction does change things and change the math a lot. You can even use it to memory choke your opponent. You can use it to obviously keep turn and like do high powered turns. One thing I will say though, and this is something that I think a lot of people struggle with, including myself, is don't try to tunnel vision on playing this off of Terriermon. That's phenomenal and great value, and again, the theme of the deck is value, but it's okay to hard slam this. Like, you need these on your board anyway. Like, it's better to set it up than to like it's better to set it up than to wait to get max value to set it up, especially if that's like a play that's a little bit harder to get to, right? So just something to consider. All right, now we're gonna move to options. 9 total. First of all, Sparkle of Fate. Now this is a card that may eventually get cut, and there may be some pushback on this card. But first things first is, dude, the fact that this is DP minus protection is awesome. Against Vaccine, against Nume, that does come up. You could argue that it may even come up against Mastamon with that being a new thing, but I mean, Chaos deck exists, so who cares? 3 cost Evo into Rapid X is crazy. You could go into Rapid X for 3 over anything, including Gargomon, which is pretty crazy. Granted, you don't get, I think, the minus 4K, but you do get Rapid into Rapid shenanigans, which is funny. And in a bit, I'm actually gonna go through some combos to show you kind of what that looks like. But Rapid into Rapid's funny, especially if you go like level 5 and level 5, or even like Rapid X into Rapid X, Mega Gargo into Rapid X, etc. And Gargo into Rapid X is funny, and the security effect is nice, but it's not something that you're really playing for. But more or less, it's just, this is a card that can help if you see it, right? Because you do have to draw into it. So I like it. I think it's definitely worth including, especially with some of the DP minus matchups, whether it be Vaccine, the Mirror, you could argue, or even Numemon. And obviously Numemon I think is a matchup that you can do pretty well into. So this is a one of. All right, so next we play 2 green members. I would argue that we'll put this up to 3, or to maybe 3 or 4. I mean to 3, excuse me. So obviously you dig 4 cards. You grab any of the Digimon that you need. You use the biggest thing for me is the memory gain to extend plays. Like I love Double Typhoon, but the fact that you don't gain memory off of it, I mean granted you play a body, sometimes makes it awkward because you really want to extend your plays. I'd say early game you want to probably see Double Typhoon, and maybe mid game hitting a green Memboost or something helps you like really extend and push damage and push for the win. Another thing also is this plays around Dragon mode. So Imperial Dragon mode, as we go into EX6 and then also BT17, Dragon mode is going to be more prevalent. Imperial becomes not only just a strong deck, but one of the best decks in the format. And if you pop training to Evo into like Gargomon, Rapidmon, etc., you trigger the Dragon mode, and then your stack goes to hell. You know, so that is something to consider. That's why you might see a little bit more of an uptick of mem boosts. The thing is, this can be gated, right? You can use a floodgate, but thankfully, the way this deck works, floodgates are relatively easy to out. It's also a consistency piece. And again, final thing, Typhoon is great, but sometimes we just need that memory. And then agility training. I don't think I really have to explain this. Just I keep saying that, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's just a great card. Memory choke your opponent, reduce your Evo costs, and you can also save your Lopmons. Oh my god. Turn your Lopmons 4 cost Evo into a 2 cost Evo, which it still sucks, but you know, it is what it is. Next we'll move to Double Typhoon, best search card in the deck. Sets up the star deck Terriermon plays with the EX2, sets up Lopmon. It lets you do a lot of things. It facilitates Lopmon, facilitates Tamer setup. The security effect actually comes up pretty often when it hit out of security, because then you suspend 2 bodies and you're able to play something else. So that almost like sets up the Rapidmon, right? Like let's say your opponent hits this in security, it suspends both their bodies. You don't have any Tamers, but then you can push up the gold Rapidmon, and I'm pretty sure if you Evo into it, actually no, you need the Tamers for the DP minus. But if you Evo into it, you are able to then, you know, hopefully swing over something, right? Or at least like hopefully like a line swing over something. That's the biggest thing. Is like this just gives you the opportunity to then control your opponent's board. Agreeably though, and then another thing, the search of this, if you hit a Tamer in a Digimon, bro, you're the best in the world. I do wish this card revealed 4. LOL. If you watched my last video, you understand why that's funny. But either way, revealing 3, hitting a Tamer and a Digimon, insane. Again, great value deck. 1 giant missile currently. I could definitely see this be put up to 2, especially for consistency of seeing it, but you only really want to see it against Tyrant and Magna, and granted Tyrant is not really a deck I've played, like we don't really play against. I think that deck is bad right now, but it is removal in a pinch. Maybe you want to play 2 for the Magna matchup, hopefully but that's the thing too, is my perspective is hoping they hit it in security. I don't think that's like a winning game plan, if that makes any sense. Don't get me wrong, if they do, phenomenal. I mean, in Mirage, we play Full Moon Meteor, but hoping they hit something in security isn't really a reliable game plan, in my opinion. But, I mean, playing one that you could also argue is not a reliable game plan. But if you see it, it's a really good removal in a pinch. Out of security, obviously, can change the game depending on what you're playing against. Problem is, can be dead in hand. Drawing into this when you're looking for a level 4 is super negative. This can also be cheaper thanks to aces. Like if you bottom deck an Imperial, or if you bottom deck anything with ace, whether it be like Metal Greymon ace, lol, no one plays that, Garudamon, etc., it's gonna cost like 5, maybe 4. And again, something I consider maybe playing one more of. Maybe remove Sparkle, play another one of these, just because truthfully we do need the removal, and it's something that obviously could see an increase in importance as we go through the game and the meta develops. All right, so we're going to talk about some considerations. These are some additional cards that are not in my deck list, or maybe I don't play multiple variations of, that you can consider also playing. And I don't have notes for this. I'm just going to try and go through this as quickly as I can. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about Digimon. I think there is a case for Ukos, just so you could up your consistency, maybe, or up your aggression. I think the bad part is, though, when you do Uko, you can't. It's just a little awkward, right? Like, that's like the argument is like, if you go, you can't Uko training, for example, or you can Uko for one in the back. But the problem I think with Ukomon is you only want to see this card's only really good in like your first turn. Or you could argue that it's even good later game, mid game, late game. It's just awkward because you really want to build into rapid stacks, right? To make these bodies that are harder to remove and obviously deal with your opponent's border control. So like pushing up an Uko isn't really great. I'd actually argue that maybe early game it's like when it's best, but you know, it's something I would say you could consider testing. Terriermon, the memory blocker, is one that's also pretty good. I think it could help a lot in the Pyeodramon matchup or Imperial matchup, so that's something to consider. It's just the fact that it has no inherit is like kind of bad, you know, like you really want some value out of your cards. You could play more of the EX4 Searcher, another card, the EX4 Terriermon. I would say that if you're playing Henry, obviously it makes sense to play this at maybe 4. And then finally, Rapidmon. So this is the old EX2 Rapidmon. This card's interesting. When you Digivolve, if you have a green Tamer in play, you suspend something. And then the Inherited, which, I mean, it's kind of harder to get to, but if it sees an opponent's Digimon become suspended, it gains Sec +1 for the turn. So you could see how this could go work in tandem with Rapid X, but you may have, when you evolve into this, you may have already quote unquote wasted the suspend, if that makes any sense, because you may have suspended the only body, hypothetically. So that's why it's like maybe a one or two of if you want to play, if you really want more level 5s. But I definitely think that it's a niche card, right? And that's what these considerations are. All right, so as far as Digimon still, also, I forgot I put this slide, you could consider playing more of the Terrier X. It's a great card. I definitely think it's worth playing. If I wasn't playing Lopmon, I was playing the Fire Rocket version, I'd probably play more of them. I'd probably play 4 like standard, but yeah, something to consider playing. Obviously, because the extra draw, it's insane, and the reduction is insane. Everything's insane. Tamers, very lightly put. If you want to play Henry, if you want to play the Henry version of the deck, that's fine. I just think that the warp into Mega Gargo Ace Mega Gargo is cool. However, like if you're going into Ace, which is really the only good one, it's not as valuable, right? And you're more susceptible to dying and then giving your opponent 4 memory. Granted, and then the gain 1 memory is basically the same thing as Willis, just in reverse, right? Like because you're getting the memory as opposed to reducing the evo cost. And then the 4-cost Henry is interesting. When you attack with Digimon with Gargamon Rapidmon name, you may suspend this Tamer just to spell on your opponent's Digimon. If this redirected, this card would be cracked. But the fact that it just rests something is just okay, I think. Granted, you could maybe use it for more control-focused playstyle, but the deck already kind of does that already with like the rapids and stuff. So I just think this card isn't as strong. I would have loved to see this like let you redirect attacks though. That would have been insane. Like you could like maybe kind of like how Shoto works right now or in the newer sets, is that you tap it, maybe redirect into a suspended Digimon. So like in a perfect world, your turn when attack a Digimon with Gargamon Rapidmon's name, you may suspend this Tamer, rest one of their Digimon, and then change your attack target to it. I think that would be cool. Options, okay, some of the ones we mentioned, Fire Rocket, I do think it's a good card. However, obviously you have to draw into it. I think the security effect is actually kind of funny and relevant in some instances. Magna X can hit into it and blow up. Fenrir Lugumon hits into it and blows up. So that's pretty funny. Unfortunately, it doesn't go to your hand. That'd be crazy if it did. But definitely a card worth considering playing. Giant Missile. Obviously, I already mentioned this. Could play another one. Typhoon, you could play a 4th. Consistency. Agility training, maybe if Imperial isn't as prevalent, it's a card you can consider putting up in count. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, if Imperial is more prevalent, you could consider cutting more agility trainings and playing more mem boosts. A Sparkle of Fate, you could consider playing another one depending on the matchup, depending on the mirrors, depending on the meta. If there's a lot more DP minus heavy stuff, like we maybe saw with like Shine a little while ago. Hidden Potential Discovered is a card that I'm on the fence about. I think it's a great card, but it's just awkward tapping your stuff sometimes when you really want to get the value out of like evoing. Out of the value of swinging, right? Especially with your little guys, if you like want to throw them a scary, do some damage. So HPD definitely could come up. You could like tap into Mega Gargo, right? Unsuspend and do some crazy shenanigans like that. But I don't know. I don't know if it's worth the inclusion. I think that green as a color has kind of gotten done a really good job of just like reducing evo cost and making itself super efficient and affordable to evolve, to the point where this card is, it's still broken, don't get me wrong, but maybe it's not as needed. But again, something worth testing. So those are considerations. So now we're going to go into our matchup breakdown. And if you're with me, appreciate you. So how do we do into the meta? First deck we talking about is Numemon. I actually feel like if they open Uko, you just lose because they go so fast. It's very safe to say this is best deck in format. So I do think your matchup with it can be okay if you can do some board clear. Your board clear is good. If you can out their entire board and make sure nothing sticks, it's good. But it's just difficult, I think, because they do outspeed you because they don't really rely on the Tamers like we do, right? Like you need to set up the Tamers. Rapid X and BTA Rapidmon are key. You need to be able to clear board effectively. Like if you can like BTA Rapidmon, rest everything, DP minus it, and then right after that go Rapid X and then clear the board a second time for anything they play out maybe off of their effects, you're golden. You're in the good place. On top of that, I think it is a little bit scary the fact that they can Edamon Valk Ace you, which is really mean, and then they can also Waru Manze you. I don't really think they play that anymore, but they can do that, which is the Digivolve hurts and super annoying. So yeah, overall, I think, and the fact that you threaten Ace is also kind of scary for them, but I think overall this matchup is like a neutral. They can outspeed you, but also you can deal with their board pretty effectively. So I would say it's neutral. I would say though, if I were to give you a more definitive answer, I would probably say it's more Numemon leaning just because of how fast they can go. But also the deck can break. Next matchup, and I'm not going to cover every matchup in the meta, I'm just covering over some of the more relevant ones, I guess, ones that we're more likely to see. Magna, the big bad boogeyman. The deck obviously hasn't performed to the level that we expected. I mean, it's still very good, but at least the VMon version, if they can't reproc the protection, you can kind of deal with it. In that instance, you really want to have like Rapid X out with like a blocker Rapid or just another Rapid out, so you can when they swing they get minus DP'd because of the Rapid X, and then you obviously go Gargo, block, blow it up, right? And then hopefully that's enough to deal with it. But to be honest with you, even then, like you do that, let's say, and then they armor purge down to Magnamon. They just go Magna X again, and it's awkward, right? So it's a weird matchup. I do think you do outvalue them, and you can outspeed them, but hypothetically, if they just go VMon Magna X, and over the course of like 2 turns, you're in a bad place. And of course, if they see Blinding Ray and like Zubabagan Punch, etc., it's awkward. I think you can beat them, but I think you're more so relying on them not being able to refresh the protection. And that's just kind of that matchup in general, I think, across the board for like every deck, but more so for you because it's kind of difficult to swing over it. 9 times out of 10 you cannot, and the fact that it's unaffected by any of your resting effects is super obnoxious. I would actually argue that the vaccine version is worse to play against because not only can it high roll you, they also play your stuff, but they can do it for cheaper. So that's super annoying. And then you're Rapid getting cleared by a Rapid X is just, God, man, that has to be a hate crime. They also play Ruin Mode and Venusmon, which are 2 of the most toxic cards in the game. The other Magnet can play Death X, which is annoying too. So those are all just cards. I consider them like, it's not correct, but I consider them like skill replacement cards, right? Like if the person's like, oh no, they've defeated me and outplayed every single thing I have done, Death X, you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, well, this guy's a jerk. But yeah, TLDR, this matchup can be super annoying, mostly because if they play the Nyaromon or the Kiaramon, they can just keep trashing their own security and obviously recovering with like Magna and something like that. So what they get this cycle going where they can just swing with Magna X, recover, or recycle immunity, recover, etc, etc, etc. So I definitely think this matchup's a lot worse. However, they brick super hard, so if they don't see Patamon, you can just slap the hell out of them. But the theory with Digimon I have now is a lot of decks are just more annoying. That's all. But this is one of the more crucial, annoying ones because if they get their TKs, if they get the Patamons rolling, it's not a good time. And they can even play, again, Venusmon, Ruin Mode, or even Dark Shadow Seraphimon, but I mean, I don't think they actually do that anymore. Verdict is unfavorable. All right, so then there's a Mirage, and one of my favorite decks. This matchup is verdict is oof, because it's a solitaire deck. It's a BT9 deck. Like, they don't really care what you do. They're just gonna swing, or ignore your board entirely. Granted, there is a threat of ace. However, if you don't see Star Deck level 5 Rapidmon, your stack is gonna be outed. Between Zudo, Mirage, Burst Mode, etc., they kind of just slap you up, you know? And just for some context here, I think against all the matchups that I've mentioned so far, including especially this one, you want to try and go fast and apply pressure. Mirage struggles against Numemon occasionally, or pretty often, when Numemon's able to apply pressure quickly and make it awkward for Mirage to find their pieces, make it to where they need to respond. Because then obviously if they have a suboptimal stack or suboptimal board state and they push up to deal with the board, Numemon can then clap back with like an Edamon or, you know, Edamon Valkyce, and it's very easy just to slap them up. But that's the thing with Mirage, is if you give them time, like if you let them set up, you're playing right into their hands. Right, because they're gonna swing. They'll probably have jamming. They'll probably be unblockable, and then they'll have burst mode, etc. to out your stack. Zudo Ace to out your stack. So it's a lot of the matchups in this meta are kind of like you need to find Star Deck Rapidmon level 5. But I just think this matchup's kind of tough. I do think what you need to do is you need to go fast. So if like you break, or if you're unable to like really keep tempo or establish a really quick setup, it can be pretty ugly. Because also hypothetically, you can just kill yourself by like you can just lose by swinging security. Like let's say you alliance for 2 checks, try and be aggressive. You hit like training Thomas. It's like, all right, I just died, you know. And then obviously the Gummymon drawing cards also hurts a little bit. I mean, it's so good against everything else, but against this matchup, it's obviously unfortunate. So this matchup is tough. All right, next matchup we're gonna talk about is Imperial. I think this is probably the deck I've grown to dislike the most because of how free it is. The fact that they have the Davis Ken that plays out the bodies for free, and then they can go turbo. They go into Pyodramon. Obviously, it's literally basically a red deck. You just swing, Evo, flood, and then the fact that they go into Dragon mode and it's like a super floodgate is super annoying. Even if like hypothetically you go into Starter Deck Rapidmon, the level 5, again, I keep clarifying, to de-digivolve it, they're still in Pyodramon, so they can still ace you. But your card's then immune, so then you can go like, the Rapid X swing over it, right? And then they don't partition because they don't get it. But that's like one line of play potentially. But if they get the Pyodramon combo off before you're able to respond, you're down to like 2 security, 3 security, which is super annoying. Especially if they do like XVmon swing because they're a 4-head, and then they go DNA swing, super annoying. And the fact that it locks you down for the turn is kind of cringe. More than anything, them resting your Willis sucks. Again, ace threat is annoying. The fact that they source strip you is crazy, because then you lose the DP minus on your Rapid X, which is super unfortunate. And again, another instance of where Mega Gargo Ace can help, but it's like a calculated risk, right? I still think this matchup is neutral. It's just by the time you do anything, you're gonna have 2 security left, typically. Because even let's say you hypothetically push up early with like your level 4 and like you're ready for them to do something, dude, they're just gonna rest it. They're gonna have more sources than you. They're gonna strip it, and then yeah, that's just awkward. This is one of those matchups I think you have to play a little more reactionary. But truth be told, if they see 2 Davis Ken, it's GG. I like just scoop up, pack it up, go home. But I definitely think it's a neutral matchup. I think a lot of these matchups, depending on your level of skill and obviously the development of the board states, it depends on whether or not who's gonna win. And of course, that's like saying it depends when it comes to who's gonna win is terrible. But I do think that naturally the matchup is very like 50-50. But that's if you see the immunity Rapidmon. All right, next, Fenrir-Lugamon. This deck I think is free for Rapid X, because, well, first, this deck loses to itself like half the time anyway. 9 times out of 10, their game plan turn 1 is Analog, Youth, and Prey, right? So, and I love this deck. It's one of my favorite decks, but I think that its game plan is very loose, and the fact that like Rapid X shuts down their whole game plan, like they can alliance, right? So let's say they have like Fenrir-Lugamon or Sol-Lugamon, and they go to alliance with like a Tyranno, they get the security +1, but they don't get the DP because the monster died. It died because it had no DP. So instead of swinging for 2 checks at 12k, they're swinging for 2 checks at 8k, or obviously 12k. If actually no, because then the Soul Luger is it's gonna be 2 checks at 8k, because then if the Soul Luger goes into Fenrir-Lugamon, it's gonna be -4k. So I just think this is kind of a free matchup. Mega Gargo Ace getting killed by Hellluger is definitely something to be scared of, but I mean, I think you just go fast against this deck. You just apply pressure, apply pressure, apply pressure. The one thing to be wary of, though, is you don't want to leave any bodies out that can't purge, because then that's how they OTK you. So that's just something to consider. Or if you like, dude, again, starter deck immunity Rapidmon is just crazy. You know, you just pass turn over, they can't do anything about it. I do think this deck is fairly easy to deal with, though. If you just sit on Rapid X, they just lose. Next matchup is Tyrant Kabuteru. This can be kind of annoying because they just get huge, and then obviously they're immune to all your stuff, which is something that obviously you're going to struggle into. I think you can kind of deal with it. You can clear everything else that's not Tyrant Kabuteru fairly easily, unless they have the protection or immunity, which I know some of the cards do. And then Mega Gargo kind of helps limit their defensive plays by resting their Tamer, resting the Izzy so they can't redirect. Your one line of play that does help, especially since you build value and build board very quickly, having multiple monsters, is being able to alliance over the suspended Tyrant. Granted, you can redirect, they can redirect into something else, but with your ability to rest things and give them DP minus, it's obviously not Tyrant Kabuteru. You can clear their board and then swing over the Tyrant Kabuteru, and then they're in so much trouble. This is a good deck, Tyrant, but I think it needs a little more help. It's a little bit slow, right? And then they're gonna give you 6 to Evo over the level 5, so they usually have a lot of memory to play with. It's just the turn it comes out, it can be scary because it's a huge DP, but they don't really push damage, right? They can do some janky stuff with like Lopmon, but they don't really push damage. They're mostly checking for 1, maybe 2 per turn, so you got time. But just remember, they do bottom deck stuff, so be careful. Ogudamon, or 7 Great Demon Lords. So this is a deck that hasn't come out yet, and I didn't include Mastamon here. My bad. I think Mastamon's actually probably a tough matchup just because of the way the removal works. But if it's DP minus, predominantly you can focus on just trying to use Sparkle of Fate more. But I do think that you kind of deal with their board pretty effectively, obviously. But security Chaos Degrade being a thing is terrible. So for 7 Great Demon Lords, no, actually, before I go on, matchup neutral. The matchup with 7 Great Demon Lords, I need more data on it, but I'm just going based off theory here. I presume that Armor Purge helps a lot here because your bodies stick on the board, and obviously they're playing stuff really expensive. You're a cheap, cost-efficient deck. They are a deck that's hard playing for a little bit of a reduced cost, but they're usually going to give you a decent amount of memory to play with every turn. There are some scary stuff. Levia being able to Sword Strip, Biting Crush, 7th Lightning, Levia X, etc. Basically, the Levia stuff is scary, and there's some other scary stuff too, including, I'm trying to remember, like the Lucemon Loop is kind of annoying. The fact that they can pop Tamers with Levia is also super annoying. That's a word I use a lot. You probably want to avoid using Ace in this matchup, especially because you're higher likelihood of dying in security, especially with the fact that they play Ogudamon. But I presume, again, that Starter Deck Rapidmon, lots of value here because they can't remove it. Unless they obviously just swing at it, which usually they can. So I think if you can like do some damage, end your turns on Starter Deck Rapidmon, they're kind of like, damn it, what do I do? Unless they like swing over it with like Beelzemon or something. But then, surprise Ace, right? They Ace, they lose their body. And I'm trying to remember the mechanic of how the gate works, but that's just my theory on this. I think this deck is going to be super strong. Obviously, need to play test against a little bit more. Deck just came out on Friday, last Friday, so need more practice against it. But I think it could be a solid matchup for Rapid just because the stickiness of the Terriers and stuff. All right, so now we're going to go through some common combos, and these are typical lines of play you'll see. This is probably a little bit too basic for a lot of you watching this, but I at least wanted to include it for some newer players. So the first one we'll see right here is the double Terrier, and what this is just basically starter deck Terrier into Terrier EX with using like maybe double Typhoon or something. You'll gain the memory off playing the Willis, so it actually costs 0, and then you can do something like Evo in the back, you draw a card, and then you set up a pretty crazy board, and then you can use this to choke your opponent to 1 somehow, either by going Terrier X Rapidmon, or maybe doing training, or you can even Evo in the back if you need to, and use that as an opportunity to set up something in raising again. Ideally, obviously, you want to try and keep that starter deck Terriermon though, so you can keep applying pressure. But also, you can then use the Terriermon that you promoted from raising to then apply pressure. You do a free check, right? And you still have another body for your opponent to deal with. So, just things to consider. I call that the double Terrier. Next play we have here is Hateful Rabbits. And this one is very simple. This is not a complicated play. This is basically Rapid into BT8 Rapidmon into Rapid X. Just completely nukes the board, right? Minus 9k, and then you're going to be at like 12k swinging over something. Most things can't survive this, and this punishes your opponent so hard for like being lazy and like pushing out a stack that maybe wasn't ready to fight, you know. Like I had a vaccine player do this against me. Like, they pushed up their rapid and I was like, I'm gonna kill that. You know, so this is just something to take advantage of and punish the board, because also you have to think about it. If you're able to clear something, you get the value of the memory back from the Rapid X, so you can literally choke your opponent and it's their own fault. And then if you have your tamer set up, dude, oof, you're just cooking. Next one is the block lock. So this is when you have a Rapid X, a Rapid with blocker and Rapid X on the board. So if your opponent swings, they may not be thinking about it, but they'll get hit by minus 8k. But then additionally, you can also use the other block body to go into Mega Gargo X, a Mega Gargo Ace, to where then they swing, they get -4 from the Rapid X, and then you block with Mega Gargo Ace. So this is like the combo you want to see against Magna, and maybe even against some other decks, but it's a little bit of I would say it's actually a little bit of a more difficult board state to get to, but with the value the deck creates, I think it's actually not terrible. Obviously you have to see the right cards, but I think it's a super, super powerful thing. Even let's say if you don't evolve into the Mega Gargo, if they swing and you block, and let's say they're swinging with level 6, you nuke it 8k, and then it just dies to your blocker. You know, so if your opponent's not paying attention, or even if they're in a situation where they have to swing, like Red Hybrid, for example, this is like something where it's like, oof, your opponent's not gonna have a good time. Next one is the Sparkle Surprise, and this is a longer little clip here, but this is a TLDR. The fact that Sparkle lets you turn a Gargo or Rapid into any Rapid is really funny. So like for example here, you could go Rapid X, you can go BT8 Rapid, you can go level 5 Rapid, you can do anything. And you can even do some funny shenanigans, like Star Deck Immunity Rapid into Immunity Rapid. So to Digivolve something twice, just because you're a jerk, you know? Or you could reset the immunity, right? I don't know why you would do that. I mean, there may be instances where you would do that, but long story short, I think the Sparkle Fate just allows you to really do some funky and funny plays that extends the dynamics of the deck, right? And lets you just do some stuff that maybe your opponent may not have thought about, including Mega Gargo Ace into either level 4 or, you know, a level 6 or into Rapid X. So just something to consider. I definitely think it's a fun card to use, and the fact that it also prevents you from being DP minus is super, super relevant, and I would actually argue that it's probably getting a little bit more relevant in this next meta. Next one is the Ellen Nuke, and the reason I call it the Ellen Nuke is because it's Ellen DeGeneres, and it's degenerate. It's like your opponent swings, right? Or like it's your turn, you build up your other stack, and then you swing, or you go into Rapid X and you rest everything, and then they get -8, and then you flick them off. So like, this is very common. This is something you see a lot, especially if you get your tamer set up early. But I think this play is so crazy, because not only do you nuke their entire board by 8k, because you rest everything, but you also gain 4 memory, and that's crazy. Most of the time, if you get to this board state, you're probably gonna win. I hope. And then I think this is maybe the last one I have here. I'm not 100% sure. I call this green things. TLDR is if you can go Rapid into, level 4 Rapid into Immunity Rapid, Digivolve, and then you go Rapid X. This allows you, and if you have the Terrier X in source, this is even crazier, because then what you do is you can swing, right? And you can swing over the rested body, draw a card, kill it, so you gain 2 memory, trash the security, and then you pierce. And that's like this is like the creme de la creme of plays for this deck, and if you can get this off, man, again, I mentioned it earlier in the video, you feel like a god. So just something to consider. It's definitely my favorite play in the entire deck, and if you can pull it off, do it. But hey, that actually wraps up this video, and we're rounding out at about 54 minutes here, so hopefully this doesn't go too crazy on YouTube. But hey, appreciate you checking it out. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. And if you end up watching to the end here, appreciate your time immensely. Please leave a like, leave a comment. And I'm okay with constructive criticism. Is there anything you liked, anything you didn't like, anything you wish I would have dived deeper on? Please let me know. It was a ton of fun putting this together. Obviously took a lot of time, but if this is something that our community wants, I'm more than happy to try and invest some more time in not only learning other decks at a higher level, but sharing the information, especially for new players. So again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Shout out Digipanda. Ah.